Hey everybody, welcome back to Systematic Geekology. We are continuing our series, Getting to Know Your Hosts. Systematic Geekology is a podcast with like 14 different hosts at this point, I think. I don't know, 10, 12? There's a lot.
It's all over the
Um,
place.
yeah, a lot to keep up with. You hear Christian's voice a lot. He is one of the most common hosts of Systematic Geekology. And today we're going to get to know him a little bit better outside of what he does for the show. If you're just kind of wondering, who is this guy? What is he like? Why do I care what he says? This will be the perfect one for you. So, Christian, let's start with this. What are your favorite things to geek out on?
Gosh, how much time do you have, Joshua?
Pick three.
I'll pare it down. Yeah, I've always been. I'm a big Spider-Man guy. Ever since I was a kid, the animated series when it came out at the perfect time for little Christian. He loved it, still loves it to this day. Spider-Man is my number one hero of all time. Probably my favorite fictional character of all time too, if I ever assembled a list. Which is why it's hurt
What
so
about
much
Job?
what's happening recently. What?
What about Job?
Job is not fictional.
Continue.
But yeah, so Spider-Man would be a big one. So Marvel by proxy. I'm also a big Batman guy. So I'm slowly getting back into DC right now. I've got caught up to Action Comics, and I'm gonna be going into Chip Zdarsky's Batman run to see what's going on there because I really enjoy his Daredevil. Also, I'm a
Yes.
big anime and manga guy. You probably that's why on Wednesday nights, hopefully, once the summer season starts up, I'll be doing once a week Wednesday night streams of Wednesday Night Weeaboo for the YouTube channel. Looking forward to that, to covering all that stuff because it's a lot of fun, and I really have no one else I get to talk to. So why not just create a captive audience to do that for? See, also, I'm a big video game guy. You give me your Skyrims and Fallouts, RPGs, Final Fantasy, the Tales games, stuff like that, Mass Effect, and then as well, I'm a big,
Mass Effect's good.
huge into horror
I
where
said
it
three.
comes to what
I said
Mass
three.
Effect 3.
No.
We
I
can.
said three things you could choose. I think you're at
Oh,
like
you said
five or
3. Well, I
six.
apologize, but like, if you guys don't know, Joshua and I, whenever Joshua gives me a list of things I can do, I always add more, and that wasn't intentional this time. So I'll just say I like horror, whether that's novels or movies, and also I'm big into cryptozoology, and that's why we were doing Friday Night Frights.
Yeah. So what about D&D? I hear you do some of that with
I
systematic
am in the
ecology.
D&D. I got introduced in college by Matt Bailey, your favorite assassin. Uh, that's another story for another time. But he introduced me to 4E, but now I'm into 5E. I've DM'd a couple of times. I've played a couple of times. I'm doing it right now for the channel for is it our patrons right now?
It is for patrons can participate if they give a certain amount, and primarily if you're on Captivate, you're subscribing Captivate.fm, subscribe to the show. Also, our website, which is like systematicecology.captivate.fm, you can go on there, you can subscribe, or you can do a one-time tip if you'd like, because we're all broke. That's helping you get to know your host. We're all broke.
Well, I can explain why I'm broke too if you want that.
yeah. Getting to know you outside of this is kind of just that's the one of the big things is you are a seminary student. You want to tell them where you go to school at and why?
Yeah. I go to the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. I just finished my first year, so I'm in summer classes right now, and I'm loving it. It's a huge challenge. I am not nearly as prepared as I thought I was. I have never before in my life ever gotten anything below like maybe an 82 on any paper I've ever written. I know, and that's when I was not really caring. Like,
Wild,
yeah, I got a 70 on a paper recently, Joshua, and it tore my entire worldview because that has never happened to me before in my life. These jokers,
crazy.
yeah, that they are strict. So I enjoy that. I enjoy being challenged, but mostly it's because I over the years I've always felt the call to ministry, but I ran as far as I could in the other direction because that sounds like work. And if there's anything Christian actually doesn't do, it's work.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree with you there. He does a lot of work for systematic ecology, and one thing that I know takes a lot of work that's really hard. Something else he does. We're gonna get. I might have some other seminary stuff questions, but he's also a writer. You want to talk about some
Yes.
about your books, which I know take a lot of work to do?
Yes, they do. I started writing when I was in high school in junior year when I read Stephen King's The Stand for the first time. That's part of the horror stuff earlier. Like, I really enjoy reading his stuff, but just getting my own start there, trying to find an agent, all that, it's misery. So, what my I did along with my two friends, John and Barbara Erdley, is we established our own little organization called Starving Writers Guild, where we just self-publish, independently publish books together as a company, and just raise the funds for that. Go out to conventions and stuff like that. So, I've written 4 books. Do you want me to go through all of them briefly?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So my first two, they're in a series. It's Lost Time and Deadlands. Essentially, after the crucifixion, there was a group of people who created this organization to protect the world from supernatural threats. Our main character finds himself in America 100 years in the future, where vampires have taken control of America, and now his organization's been wiped out, and he has
Gotta
no
love
clue
a
how that
vampire
happened.
story.
Oh yes. So it's him finding it how like who he can trust right now, where he can go, and then the sequel would be him like, okay, I've reestablished this organization in a different way. Now what do I do? Because I'm not meant to be a leader yet. I have to be because I'm the one with the most experience.
Mhm.
Then my third one would be Broken Veil, which basically a group of college students on their way from their, I think it's their summer, no, it's their spring break. I'm pretty sure. It's been a while
Mhm.
since I've read that one. And they pick up this hitchhiker who turns out to be a wandering pastor on the run from a demon. As
Ah,
they go to a town where Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, has supposedly fallen, it's become this big tourist attraction. So, is it real? Is the demon real? All this stuff. So, them having to survive the night there. And my last one would be Resurrection Life. And as a big anime guy, when I go in sometimes, and they hurt me every time, are isekai stories, which are basically stories where people get taken from our world to another fantasy world to like have powers and stuff like that in adventures. But the genre is something I really like. The execution sometimes not so much. So this is essentially my kind of deconstruction and reconstruction of that genre, where I go into our main protag Gideon Sato is brought over to this world to become one of the main paragons to heroes, and he gets killed. And then 9 years
well,
later, he's brought back to life in a world that has never experienced resurrection before, that they're aware of. So, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to come back to life? What? Why was he killed in the first place? And he's gonna dig into all these mysteries. So, that's all my writing.
the third one, I can't remember what you said the third book was. What was the name of
Broken
that?
Veil.
Broken Veil. That reminded me a lot of there is Hellboy in the Bones of Giants, something like
Okay.
that. One of my favorite audiobooks I've ever listened to. So much fun. Just Hellboy dealing with Norse mythology, creatures, gods, etc. Hellboy, and that version of Hellboy is very much like what you see in the movies rather than some of the comics, which for that
Yeah.
particular story is a lot of fun. His fist gets kind of fused with Mjolnir at one point, and he's just kind of like stuck with this thing. And he's always aggravated and grumpy anyway. And he's like, "Oh, people keep like trying to deceive him and hide stuff," and he's like, "I just want this to be over."
Of course.
Very amusing ride, yeah.
You said
Okay,
it was a
wow.
novel, not a comic.
Yeah, for me, I listened to it as an audiobook.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of fun.
All right.
Um, Southern Baptist Seminary. I know that's a lot of work. Um, uh, have you talked to Al Mohler or see what? So I'm trying to think of my favorite people over there. Greg Allison and Donald Whitney are probably my two favorite that I've spoken to from the seminary.
And out of those three, I've talked to none.
Perfect.
So I'm hoping to have their classes later on.
Yeah, yeah. Make sure you sign up for Donald Whitney and then Greg Allison. Man, great guy. He writes historical theology. Awesome book. So you're in seminary, but you're not the host of My Seminary Life. For
I'm
those who
not.
might be confused, who follow the Amazon Ministry Podcast Network, we have 4 or 5 podcasts on the AMP network. One of them you do host, though, outside of systematic ecology. You also do Let Nothing Move You. You want to tell them about that podcast real quick?
Yes. So it's been something that had been on my mind for quite some time. What I used to do when I was back home before I left the seminaries, I led a Bible study. And we were going chapter by chapter, verse by verse through the entire Bible from the start to finish because one of my members had never done so. So I thought, yeah, that'd be fun. Let's do it together. But I mean, plans changed. Like I had to come to seminary. Like I had to stop running and go to where God wanted me to go, which is not fun, but it's what I need to do. So but I missed it. That idea of like having this discussion about what does this chapter mean? What do you think God is trying to tell us here? And like I just joined a church, but I can't just like come in and say, "Hey, you don't know me, but I deserve to lead a Bible study." So, as egotistical as I am, like there are limits. So I had to send that egotism elsewhere. So I said, well, once again, why don't I just make my own captive audience and have people listen to me go through? I started with the book of Luke, the Gospel of Luke, because it's my favorite gospel. I love the way Luke writes. He's very historical, very logical minded person. And I just really jive with that. So I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to Romans because a lot of questions that are asked in Romans are something that every Christian is going to struggle with at some point in time. So I want to give my point of view on that. And then from there, I'll go from Genesis and we'll go through the entire Bible.
Man, yeah, the writer of Luke and Acts, and then of course Paul. The way they use the Greek language, so much fun. Greek is one of the most like analytical, mathematical languages out there, from my understanding. It's why I did terrible in Hebrew and did great in Greek. Greek. I was like, oh, this I get. This
Hey,
artistic language, poetic Hebrew stuff, you leave it somewhere else. But
look,
analytical
look,
number language,
yeah.
now we're talking. Now we're talking.
It, Hebrew syntax and exegesis was the best 79 I ever made in the class ever. And I could have done way worse than I did. And I studied
I did do
so
way
hard.
worse than you did.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Oh man,
But at
there's a
least you
reason
passed,
I
right?
I switched to a Christian college where I didn't have to have that credit on purpose. Um,
I don't blame you. I'll be taking Greek in the fall.
it's easier, honestly.
But we use a lot of
So
language. So
wrapping up, I did want to ask you. All of your writing cred, all of your geek cred, now going to seminary, doing all these podcasts. Where do you see all this leading in? I mean, do you see yourself as like a head pastor who occasionally does podcasts like Pastor Will? Do you see yourself as like the world's leading Christian podcaster? I mean, what, or the Christian artist writer who happens to be also a podcaster and a preacher? I mean, where do you see yourself?
I would love to just be able to sit down and write whenever I wanted. But it's becoming more and more apparent to me that that's probably not what he wants me to do. And I don't think he wants me to give it up. But I don't think he wants it to be my main focus, unless it may just be something I have to give up along the way uh, to focus on what he does want. Now, what exactly that is, I couldn't tell you, Joshua. Uh, I think it's fair. I ran for about 16 years from what he wanted me to do. I think he can
Yeah,
afford to wait just a little bit to tell me what I want this time around when he already
yeah.
told me what he wanted me to do. So, gun to my head, I have to give an answer. I would guess head pastor. Um, like I said, I enjoy teaching. I enjoy going into the word and like expounding upon it, helping bring practical applications to what we do now. But like, I could not tell you like 100% certain that's exactly why he has me here.
I get that. I get that. Well, guys, thank you all for listening. I hope you got to know Christian better, maybe even me, because I threw in commentary because I can't help myself. Um, we always have a lot of fun when we talk. We hope you guys always have fun when you hear Christian because you hear him frequently. Um, and I hope this helped you get to know him. And I hope you will all remember one very important thing, that we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.